Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, and welcome to Command Power, the show in which we discuss all things Magic the Gathering with a focus on Commander. And today we have a brand new deck tech for you, but before that, just a quick reminder to please click like and subscribe if you enjoyed my videos. We're well on our way to 1 million subscribers and every single click counts. And today's deck tech is going to be centered around Karona, False God. For 1 colorless and Wooburg, it's a legendary creature avatar 5/5 with haste, and at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player untaps Karona, False God and gains control of it, and whenever Karona attacks, creatures of the creature type of your choice get +3/+3 until end of turn. So full disclosure, this is probably my favorite Commander deck that I've played in a long time, and it's up there with Taser, I think, as one of my favorites of all time. I only built it because I bought the Secret Lair with Karona in it, which I think has amazing art, and I just wanted to give it a home, so I was thinking about how to build a deck around Karona. And also, of course, because who could turn down the opportunity to give your opponents Karona each turn? But yeah, when I saw this Commander, I started thinking about how to build her, and I thought about different ways to discourage people from attacking you and different cards that want to be switched around the table. So most of the deck is going to be giving resources to your opponents and hoping that they don't use them against you, either by discouraging attacks or by forcing goads or by doing all sorts of different things. And honestly, it's played out fantastically. It's not the most powerful deck, but it can win quite handily, and it's a very interactive and fun deck for the whole table. It never feels oppressive and it never feels overpowered. It's just right. I really enjoy playing this deck, and I hope you will too if you give it a try. So without further ado, let's get started, and we're starting off with Agitator Ant. This is really cool in the deck because you can put counters on Karona and then give her to your opponents, so she's basically going to swing for more and more damage and get bigger and bigger all the time, and you still get to reap the benefits even if you put the counters on different creatures. Bloom Tender is very good in this deck as a way to ramp us into our commander sooner. Brash Taunter is a card that I've always really liked, and it just fits very nicely here. If our opponents choose to swing at us with our Karona, we can just block her with Brash Taunter and deal a bunch of damage to their stuff, so they're probably not going to come our way. Rena the Demagogue is yet another way to encourage our opponents to attack someone other than us by offering them cards. Combat Calligrapher basically does a similar thing by giving them token flyers, and we get to get the flyers as well, so that's nice. Edric Spymaster of Tress is yet another way to redirect attention away from us by offering people cards when they damage other players. Faber Elder is another version of Bloom Tender that works very nicely in the deck by ramping us. Fairy Artisans is a card that I absolutely love. It's so fun and interactive and makes for some crazy game states, and even more than that, sometimes it's going to really make your opponents play suboptimally and you won't necessarily even know because they won't play the card that they would have normally played. Glance the Bestower is very good in a deck like this. We can make friends with it and break the symmetry, and also we can help players that are behind catch up. Heliod the Radiant Dawn is a really powerful card that should see play way more in Commander because the flip side of it is absolutely insane. But in this deck, the front side's quite good too. We have a bunch of enchantment cards that are quite powerful, so being able to regrow one of them later in the game is very good. Humble Defector is one of those cards that we like to pass around the table. That's the main theme of the deck, so of course it's in here. Illusory Ambusher is fantastic if we get attacked by a really big Karona or by a big creature. We can just flash it in, stop the damage, and draw a bunch of cards. Johnny Renica's Shattered One can allow us to donate one of our creatures to our opponents, but of course it's particularly good with our commander because then it means it can't be sacrificed and it can't attack us for the rest of the game. Cardo Doom Scourge is a classic card to avoid being attacked. This is just going to function quite nicely in the deck. Keen Duelist is my favorite card in the whole of Magic, and it's a very interactive card, so I felt that it fit the deck pretty perfectly. Khan the Betrayer is another really fun one that gets passed around the table as people draw cards, so that's really nice. Life of the Party is an incredibly powerful effect. It can get very big in a deck like this, and since people are taking Karona, they're always going to have one more creature than they would normally have, so it just fits very nicely. Nelly Borka can be pretty sweet by suspecting our commander, which is very nice because it makes it harder to block. It also discourages people attacking us, which is of course nice. Neil's Discipline Enforcer is yet another way to buff our opponent's creatures or buff our own commander, whilst also dissuading us from being attacked. Orzhov Advocus does a very similar thing. Either we get to put counters on our stuff, or everybody does, but then they don't get to attack us. Bruhan of the Fomori is a classic chaos card, and it just fits the theme of this deck very nicely. Silver Quill Lecturer has been really impressive so far. Duplicating all of the creatures that gets passed around is really powerful. Of course, it doesn't work as well with legendaries, but we can still give another legendary to our opponent as long as we're okay with one of ours dying to state-based effects. Slicer Hard Muscle deals a ton of damage in this deck. It just keeps swinging and moves the game forward really fast. Tameshi Reality Architect is in there mostly because it's a bit of a pet card of mine. You could absolutely remove this from the deck, but I just love the art, and we do have quite a few good artifacts and enchantments, so it's still pretty solid. The Council of Four is just a fun interactive card that's going to provide you a bunch of cards and creatures. Those creatures can then help block if you get attacked, so it does fit the theme of the deck quite a bit. The second doctor can discourage people from attacking us by giving them extra cards. Vizsla Turlo is a really fun one in this deck. It works very interestingly with Silvercoat Lecturer. We had 3 of these on the battlefield in one go last time thanks to that interaction. It's just a really cool card that's actually very annoying for our opponents. Windborne Muse is yet another way to dissuade people from attacking us. Windshaper Planeta can be an absolutely backbreaking play in this deck by making sure that everything attacks somebody else. Zancha is another card that gets donated to our opponents, so of course it's going to be in here. Yes Man Personal Securitron is very similar to Humble Defector, except that when it finally dies, we're going to get a bunch of 1/1s out of it. And Zedru the Greathearted is a good way for us to draw cards and gain life in this deck since so many of our permanents are going to our opponents. Moving on to sorceries, we have Ensnared by the Mara. This is a card that I absolutely love. It doesn't fit the theme that much, but it is a nice interactive card. Fateful Handoff is fantastic in this deck, particularly since we can just donate our commander since it's going to keep switching around anyway, and we get to draw 6 cards off of it. Promise of Loyalty works so nicely, particularly when we put the Vow on our commander. For instance, Guff Rewrites History is a really wacky and fun card that can make for some very funny situations. Reverse the Polarity is incredibly relevant in this deck since we can use one of its modes to make all creatures unblockable, thus helping to take out other players. And Take the Bait is an amazing combat trick that can totally swing the tides of battle. For artifacts, we have Coveted Jewel. This initially does make people want to attack you, but later on they're probably going to be attacking each other, so it's a very nice card for the deck. Assault Suit is also a very fun card, particularly when we put it on something like Ruhan of the Fomori. Moving on to enchantments, we have Curse of Opulence. This is yet another way to make people attack other players. Duelist's Heritage is a really sweet card that can allow us to influence players throughout the game by offering to give stuff double strike as long as it's not coming at us. Evolutionary Escalation allows us to make our commander bigger, whilst our opponents also get to make one of their things bigger. This just equals more damage for the table and pushing the game forward. Ghostly Prison, Propaganda, and Sphere of Safety all do very similar things. Sphere of Safety has a lower floor but a higher ceiling than the other two since we are running quite a few enchantments. Noble Heritage is really sweet. We get to put counters on stuff, particularly on our commander, and we get protection from other players if they put the counters on their stuff. Redemption Arc is also very sweet when put on our commander. It basically means that we're never going to be attacked by it and that it's indestructible. Rite of the Raging Storm keeps giving tokens to our opponents, thus moving the game forward. And of course those tokens can't attack us, so we don't really care about them that much. Shiny Impetus is another good one to put on our commander or just any creature really. We're going to get a bunch of treasure tokens off of it. The Sound of Drums is a really powerful effect in this deck, particularly since we can constantly recur it. And Trouble in Pairs is just in there because we needed an extra way to draw some cards, but you can substitute it for any other effect that can repeatedly draw you cards. Finally, moving on to Planeswalkers, we have the Eternal Wanderer. If you've followed this channel for any time at all, you know I love this card, but in this deck it's better than normal because leaving just one creature alive on our side is going to leave us with our commander, which then means that she's very likely to be able to beat in the successive turns. Very, very solid card. So there you have it. That has been my Karona False God deck tech. This has been the most fun I've had playing Magic in a while. The most expensive thing about the deck really is the mana base. Other than that, most of the deck is very, very cheap, so it should be easy to put together if you want to give it a spin, and it's a very, very fun deck. But what do you think? Have you ever played a deck like this that enjoys giving its creatures to your opponents? Are there any cards you think I missed? Anything you wouldn't have included? Let me know in the comment section below. I make sure to always read your comments. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click like or subscribe. It really helps the channel. And until next time, take care.